What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Coach Steve Show podcast, where, of course, this is your Illini post-game show. They just came off the big win versus Michigan, the mighty Michigan Wolverines, which have had back and forth with fans of that team for a while. Well, just a select few, just some. Illinois gets the big win, 93-85 over Michigan in Ann Arbor. Big bounce back win from that Ohio State game where we came up a little short. We discussed that already. Yes, I am by myself. We are live on YouTube. We're live on Facebook. We're live on Twitter. Yes, it is just me. My co-hosts, Brad and Nathan, Coach West. Coach West does have a child. If you did not hear the last time, he did have a newborn child. He's not a newborn anymore, but, kids come first. So Coach West's monthly check will come in a little late because he had to deal with his kid. Brad, lives that Florida life. He probably hanging out with Tom Brady or Jameis Winston or Pitbull or somebody. That's what Brad does, living in Florida. So it's just me. Brad might hop on here. If he does, we'll welcome him in. If not, it's just me. I apologize. It's just me. But welcome. We're going to talk about this Illinois versus Michigan game that is now over. We waited a little bit to let it sink in. Great game. But before we dive into that, if you're watching on YouTube with us live, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. It helps get the show out there. When you listen to this in audio form later on in the future, follow it, rate it, be a friend, tell a friend. It can be listened to anywhere you listen to your podcast. The podcast is brought to you by the Belly Up Sports Podcast Network. If you go to bellyupsports.com and check out all the podcast blogs and other media out there, I do believe there's over 70 podcasts and there's a bunch of blogs and everything for everybody. So go check all that out. This podcast is also brought to you by Coach Stone Football and is back to the basics, books, and drills. Us football coaches, you're going to come up in your spring ball. We're getting closer to summer. Hopefully you've been trying to get simpler, more simply, all that. So Coach Stone has just the thing you're looking for, his Back to the Basics book series. So if you go to coachstonefootball.com, click on Back to the Basics, football drill manuals and everything. His very first book is over 500 pages. So if you go to that website, click on that, you'll never have to look up another drill again. I promise. Thank you, Coach Stone, for sponsoring the podcast. So we're going to dive in again. We are currently live on YouTube. We're live on Twitter. We're live on Facebook. Coach West was going to be here with me. But again, like I said, his kid does come first. So again, his monthly check will be a little late. His monthly Bitcoin, or not even Bitcoin, can't afford Bitcoin anymore. His Dogecoin and his crypto will be a little bit later. So he will just get that monthly. Brad, lives that Florida life. Like we said, he'll be on a little bit later. Maybe if not, it's just me. So apologize that you guys have to deal with me. Sorry, currently sharing this out there to the world. If you're watching it, leave a comment, be a part of it. Let me know you're here. Give that thumbs up, subscribe. So Illinois traveled to Ann Arbor, and I fully believe that Juwan Howard got suspended so he wouldn't be 0-6 versus Brad Underwood. But Michigan came in, hosted Illinois. Illinois went up to Ann Arbor. Michigan was without their head guy, Juwan Howard, because, of course, he did the whole, the five-hand say to the face, smacked a coach. He really wanted to punch him with the assistant coach, and we discussed that. So thank God Illinois did not lose to Michigan, because I don't know if I could bear to be on social media if Illinois did lose to Michigan. But Illinois had that horrible 15-minute stretch versus Ohio State, and then at the end started to get it back, and they continued that. They continued where they left off with Ohio State. They came out and they shot the ball well. And one thing I've said about Illinois is they need more than one guy, maybe even two people scoring. They need three starters to do decent amount of scoring, and they need somebody come off the bench, if not a couple, to kind of give some points. And Illinois got that. They had guys scoring that were starters. They had it off the bench and they had contributions, and everybody stepped up and played, and they were hitting shots. And a really cool thing was they went to Kofi, but they also were still moving around the perimeter, which I've said a million times on the show. Anybody that listened to me talk about this, I've said it. When Illinois just stands there and waits for Kofi to give them the ball, he's going to get double teamed no matter who you play. You've got to move. And you saw really good ball movement too, which was something we haven't seen. And then another thing we saw from Illinois was good dribble drives into the lane. Now, there were a couple of times dribble driving into the lane. We didn't go up for the layup. That's part of the thing that concerns me, because you saw that against the Rutgers. You saw that during that comeback against the Northwestern. We saw that type of thing early in the season against Cincinnati. Illinois is very good at getting to the lane, and they're very good at kicking out, but sometimes they fall in love with the idea of kicking out. There were a couple of times in this game versus Michigan where we dribble drive perfectly, and instead of two dribble shooting is what we called and shoot it, they want to drive to the lane and they kick out because we want to shoot this three, because we start to fall in love with it. But a good thing that I saw today, we did that. But then when we got back into dribble and into the lane, we actually went up for the ball, like to get layups. Illinois is more dangerous when they dribble into the lane and they're getting layups. When they dribble in and somebody else cuts to the basket, that they are more dangerous driving into the lane, another guy driving, dish it off for a dunk, dish it off for a short range shot or a layup. They are more dangerous doing that than kicking out for a three. And that's what you saw today. We saw both. But that's why Illinois, people still talk about them being a Sweet 16 to a Final Four team. They have that type of talent. They play that type of way. But the problem is we don't do it consistent enough against the teams like Cincinnati's and the comeback with Northwestern, against Rutgers, and then Ohio State, where we give up this 10 to 15 minute stretch of horrible basketball. And then you see glimpses of it. Well, today you saw more glimpses of a good team. Now, only winning, 93 to 85, where we could have won by more. We were up by more at times. Now, going to talk about Michigan here a little bit. I don't like Michigan basketball because of Juwan Howard. Never really hated Michigan basketball. I do sympathize a little bit with their football team, but with basketball, not a fan because of what Juwan Howard does and says and this whatever. But I am going to give credit. This year, they have not played well. They started off real rough. They were, at one point, playing to be an NIT team. Like, they were not playing for an NCAA tournament team. During this game, they were talked about being picked as one of the last four teams in. I don't know if I see that. Depends on how they finish. Michigan now has to play Michigan State, Iowa, who was ranked now, and Ohio State. They could lose all three of those. Now, if they lose all three of those, are they still considered a Final Four team in the NCAA tournament? Probably not. I could see them losing all three. Michigan State beat Purdue. Michigan State played against Illinois pretty tough. So I don't know if they'll beat them. The only team on here they can maybe beat is Iowa, but Iowa is starting to play better. Iowa right now is 10-7 in conference, 20-8 overall. I mean, they're not playing bad. Michigan State's 19-9 overall, 10-7 in the conference. Michigan is 15-12, 9-8 in the conference. So they could lose all these. But I will say this: without Juwan Howard, they came in and beat Rutgers, where Rutgers was on a roll. Rutgers is right above Michigan. They're 10-8 in conference, 16-12 overall. So I will give them credit. I don't want to give them credit. But to come in and beat Rutgers, which Rutgers beat four ranked teams in a row. They took these teams to house. They took Illinois, wiped the floor with them. To come in and win without Juwan Howard, I give those kids credit. And like I said, I don't like Michigan basketball at all. I don't want them to do well while Juwan Howard's there, anything like that. And any of my friends or coaches' friends, I think of one in particular who I get along with, who's a Michigan fan. I'm sorry, that's just what I feel. Now, what I mean by that is I just want Juwan Howard to do well. But I'm going to give credit where credit is due. From a fandom, that's how I feel. But from a podcast and from like trying to be a person and everything else, there is somebody out there that's a Michigan fan that is just has blinders on. And that's all they see is Michigan, Michigan, Michigan. And that's all they see. There's nothing else. They want to talk about Brad Underwood should be suspended for yelling at a ref, which is utterly ridiculous. But I will give credit where credit's due. They at one point were talking about NIT play. Now people are talking about them being in the last 4 in. They lose the next 3 games, probably not. But that's still, I mean, going from like you're playing for an NIT, struggling to play, to playing better. And against Illinois, they did good things. They are starting to figure out how to play as a team. And I'm talking about Michigan. Michigan is starting to figure that out. And dare I say, they look like they played better as a team without Juwan Howard. Interesting. But I mean, they've beaten teams. They've just been up and down, up and down. They've beaten teams that are smaller schools than them. But then they don't really have a lot of impressive wins. Maryland has beaten some teams they've beaten. They beat Indiana. That's bad. I mean, then they did get a win at Purdue, which helps them. They did beat Iowa earlier in the year, but that's when Iowa, a couple weeks ago, was not playing the same. But so they just kind of been up and down. It's been inconsistent, similar to Illinois. But they have been playing better. Watching them today, they were playing better. Michigan hit a lot of contested shots. Illinois' defense was at times, I don't know if I want to say 100% bad, but it was at times. But there were times they closed out, tough closeouts, hand in their face, and they hit shots. Where Illinois' defense broke down was driving into the lane. They allowed a lot of layups. They allowed a few fast break opportunities to keep Michigan in the game. But I give credit to Michigan. They rebounded really, really well in the first half. In the first half, they rebounded great. They were beating us, I think, almost by 8 or 10 rebounds at one point in that first half, going into the second half. And that's one of the things where Illinois, if you don't win the rebound margin, they don't do well. And so to see them losing the rebound margin by that much and we were winning, it's pretty good. That's a pretty good that just shows how good Illinois was playing on offense today. And it's the type of thing, I went into the game a little bit worried because they don't have to want Howard. Losing to Michigan is going to be a little embarrassing. But I mean, Illinois was up at one point 50-38. So I mean, they're up decent. And then Michigan just kept coming back within, anywhere from I think it was like 6-10. They kept fighting back to get to that point. The closest I think Illinois let it get, I believe, was it was 80-76, I believe, 81-76. So, and then it got to 80-70, then it got to 89-83, and then Illinois just kind of continued. They hit some free throws. Illinois' free throws, they were 15-25, still struggling there. 10 points off the board is huge. That's 60% free throw, but the 3-point was a lot better. 10 of 17, 58%. We shot 56.7% overall. Michigan were really, really good at free throws, so it's a good thing we were up. We didn't have to start fouling. They were 22 of 25 for free throws, 88%. Their 3-point struggle, but the ones they did hit were contested. The 2-pointers they hit were contested. Watching it, then Illinois finally when Illinois wins the rebound battle, they win. They had 28 rebounds versus 26. So even though they only win by 2, it's just the thing when Illinois out rebounds them, no matter what it is, 1 or 2, they win. So to be down almost close to 10 rebounds to Michigan at one point in the first half, I believe maybe 6-10 somewhere in there. And we come back and win, which is great. That just shows the greatness of Illinois and how good they can be. And so going back to what I said before, we need starters to really put it on the other team and not get in foul trouble and able to score. That's what we did. Kofi, it seemed like at one point Kofi was going to have a bad game, and then he kind of turned it around. He was 11 of 15 shooting. Then he ended up with 27 points. He only had 1 foul, which was really, really good. He ended up with 7 rebounds, 2 offensive rebounds, 5 defensive rebounds. He ended up with 27 points. And then Plummer shot pretty well. He's 8 of 12, 6 of 9 from 3, continued from his Ohio State shooting. He ended up with 26 points. And then Trent Frazier got his groove back a little bit. He still played his defense, but he got his groove back on offense. Played a lot of minutes. He played 38 minutes, 6 of 11 shooting, 3 of 3 from 3-point. He had that one big 3 at the end to help us push the lead even farther. He ended with 17 points. So when you get 3 starters, 26, 27, and 17, that's great. And then Curbelo played a lot of minutes, 20 minutes off the bench. You got to see the lineup with Curbelo, Frazier, Granderson, I believe it was him or Hawkins, and then Kofi. And then we got to see that type of lineup with, two type of point guards that can bring up the ball. That's a decent lineup. We get to see that a couple of times. Corbell ended with 12 points, 5 of 7 shooting. He's 0 for 1 on threes, but he's 2 for 2 on free throws. So, and then Hawkins, he had a great game versus Ohio State, probably one of his better games, like an overall of defense and offense. Comes in and has 6 points. So I'm not saying that's great off the bench, but if you look at Michigan off the bench, they only had 6, 2, and 2. So we outscored them on our bench. Now they're starters for Michigan. Houston had 21, Jones had 25, and Dickinson had 13. So bench production helped us with Corbell coming off with 12 and Hawkins with 6. But just, when you have 3 starters getting score, I said this before, when you have starters scoring between 15 and I said 25. Now, if you get up to the 27, that's just icing on the cake. When you get guys scoring like that, it puts you in a great position. And I said you can't have just Kofi scoring 25 to 30 and everybody else scoring like 5 to 8. You need somebody scoring 20-some. You need someone scoring between 15 and 25. Another guy scoring like that. You need guys off the bench scoring. And then you got to play defense. Now, we did play defense a little bit, but we're getting to the point now where guys are going to have to wait to score. They're going to hit tough shots. It's just that point. We're getting literally about to be March Madness. And so guys are going to hit tough shots. You're going to close and hit tough shots. So it's going to come down to you coming down, executing on offense. You can't come down empty-handed. We had a lot of fast break opportunities as well, which was great to see Illinois. Illinois can be good at absolutely everything in basketball, but where some of their strength is that we don't see enough of is getting that rebound, fast break, the other team being discombobulated, and we either get that, shot or we drive into the lane and get the layup. So we see those type of things from Illinois. We don't see it all the time. It's just been really inconsistent, but we saw a lot of that today. Now they've got to clean up on defense, and Brad Underwood is not about to sacrifice defense just because of offense. You saw Plummer a couple times go under screens when he probably should have been trailing. And then there was the one with the double screen where he was I think he went under the double screen and he was supposed to go over it, because it's one thing to go under one screen, but when you got 2 screens to go all the way under, when you go under a double screen, he can pop it back. He can just stop and shoot, especially when the next guy doesn't shoot through. I think he might have went under. And he didn't guard the screen the way they want to. Each coach is different. Coach is going to say trail it, fight through, especially a double screen. Some are going to say go under. It depends on the coach. And he took him out and then put him back in for a while at the end there. He's not about to sacrifice defense for offense. And some might say that's Underwood's, that'll be one of his faults. Like you're taking Plummer out who has 26 points. You need him in there to score. But he's not going to sacrifice defense just because he thinks you're going to score a basket or two. Because we all know it starts on defense. When you play defense, it puts your offense in a better situation. You can't go out there and say, we're just going to focus on offense and then whatever happens on defense. Because on offense, you miss a shot, it leads the other team to come down. And since you don't play defense, they're going to hit a shot. So Coach Underwood is not going to sacrifice defense for offense. But it was great to see Illinois play better. Kofi came back to being Kofi and hitting those shots. There was a lot of times they let him go one-on-one, which was shocking. Then they were just really, really late on their double teams. But Kofi is also one of the worst ref players. He had one foul. I'm not talking about him fouling people. I think he actually played good defense today. But he gets mauled. He is in there. People are grabbing at the shoulders, grabbing at the arms. They're plowing him. And it's hard for them to ref him because he's so big. And so they're trying to figure out, like, is he just that much stronger than everybody? Well, yes. There's times he just gets mauled and there's no call. So a couple of those missed field goals he had, there was times he was getting pushed while he was trying to score and everything else. They got to figure out, there needs to be a meeting with the Big Ten refs and just say, hey, some of these big guys in the Big Ten, Kofi and other guys, we need to ref them better because he just gets mauled. He gets hit in the face or pulling on his arm. They're coming down that double team. He's trying to turn. They're blasting into him. And he just doesn't get the calls that he deserves and, works hard to try to get those calls. So he really they need to have a meeting and to say, this is how we're going to ref Kofi Cockburn. This is how we're going to ref these other big guys. And because he gets mauled. And I'm not talking about just him. There's other guys, Purdue's have big guys and everything else. I just don't think every team has a big guy like that, so they don't really know how to ref. But get over it. That's your job. You got to figure out how to ref it. But it was great to see Illinois actually hitting some shots. It was great to see them playing somewhat of defense. And at the end, Michigan started to come back. But again, watch the film. They hit a lot of contested shots. And this is a team. Illinois is a team that can make a type of run when they play like this. They can win the regular or the Big Ten tournament, the regular season Big Ten. I don't see them winning it, but it's still like crazy right now. Wisconsin is 14-4 in conference, 23-5 overall, which some people didn't expect. Purdue is 13-5. They're 24-5 overall. They're a game back behind Wisconsin. And then Illinois and Purdue are tied. They're a game back. They're both 13-5 in conference. Now Illinois is 20-8 overall. And if they were to tie, let's say Purdue and Illinois somehow for first place managed to tie, Purdue would probably win because they beat Illinois twice. Ohio State's 2 games back. But man, Wisconsin coming out of the woodwork there. I mean, some people are talking about how people are so shocked that they're good. I'm not necessarily. I'm a little bit that they're this good, but I'm not at the same time because you never count out Wisconsin. They're one of the best fundamental teams out there. That year in and year out. Now Wisconsin's got 2 games left. They've got Purdue and Nebraska. They can beat Purdue, but if they lose to Purdue, that puts Purdue back near first. And if Illinois wins out, that puts them back near there. But I could see Purdue winning the regular Big Ten. So I'm kind of over Illinois maybe winning the regular season Big Ten because then Wisconsin will wipe Nebraska. Like there won't be no question about it. But Michigan or Wisconsin being up there, a little bit shocking, but they're always good. So I'm kind of jumping off the Illinois going to win the regular season Big Ten. It is what it is. If they do, it's great. But at the same time, we're more focusing on they've got to try to win the regular Big Ten tournament. But Illinois needs to try to win out. They have a tough remaining schedule as well. They got Penn State, which they can beat, but again, it's the Big Ten. You never know. And then Iowa. But if Illinois wins out, puts them in a good spot. I don't see Purdue losing the rest of their games. When you're looking at the regular season Big Ten, Purdue's going to end with Wisconsin, which Wisconsin could beat them, but it's a tough one. And then Indiana, tough one, but I don't see Purdue. Purdue can win both, but I can see Purdue also beating Indiana. So the regular Big Ten winner is coming down to literally the wire. Michigan's got a lot of games left, like we've already talked about. They've got a lot left. Some people might talk about that being unfair, but got a lot of games. You had some that probably rescheduled, how the schedule works out, everything else. But great to see Illinois bounce back from that Ohio State game. Hopefully, I thought Rutgers would be a wake-up call. Ohio State is good, so don't get me wrong. Maybe Ohio State is that wake-up call where they're going to hopefully figure out, the rest of their schedule. They'll win out. Then they get a game or 2 bye in the Big Ten tournament and come into the Big Ten and hopefully do some damage. Hopefully that was kind of like a wake-up call and they figure it out. But Illinois gets the win over Michigan. Thank God I would not be able to show my face anywhere if they didn't win against Michigan. Michigan's got a rough road ahead, especially without Juwan Howard. But it also seems like they beat Rutgers without him. And I don't think they played that bad against Illinois without him. They hit a lot of tough shots. Illinois contested a lot of them. So Michigan seems to be playing better without him. Does that say anything about Juwan Howard's coaching style? Again, I'm not going to dive really into that because you got to know exactly how he coaches a game, know exactly what is said at practice before we start saying anything. But kudos to Michigan. They beat Rutgers, and kudos to them today. They played a lot better than I thought they would. They have good players. They were hitting shots. They were getting good drives to the lane and layups. So congratulations. Or not even congratulations, just good job to them for playing better than what I thought. Because like I said at the beginning, Michigan was playing for an NIT at one point. At one point, we said Michigan will play in the NIT and they do not belong in the NCAA tournament. I'm not saying they belong in the NCAA tournament. But when you got the people doing the brackets, they're putting Michigan as one of the last 4 in. If they lose the rest of their games, which is very, very, very possible, they shouldn't belong there. But again, it's called March Madness for a reason. So there is a small chance that Michigan somehow gets put back into the NCAA tournament, which is crazy that they could find it at that point, because we talked about earlier in the year how Michigan didn't have a strong Big Ten schedule at the time, was struggling in the Big Ten. But then they started to play better, and they've continued that. Then they had the thing with Juwan Howard and Wisconsin, but they're playing better. So they could be they could be dangerous next year to build off of that. But Trent Frazier, showed his leadership at the end, hitting the big three, and played good defense. And it was great to see Corbello get a lot of minutes. He's got to get back in shape before we get diving into the Big Ten tournament, NCAA tournament. I think the Illinois team would look a lot different if he never was sitting out and was never hurt. But yeah, Illinois gets the big win. We move on. Illinois going to have to play Penn State next on March 3rd. So they get a few days off to prepare. Penn State is 7-10 overall in the Big Ten, 12-3 overall record. They're 6.5 games back. So we can't overlook Penn State again, but this is not a team to overlook. So hopefully they can get that done. I don't think Purdue or Penn State has any big wins. Now they did beat Rutgers way back when, but then they've lost to their north. They beat Iowa as well. So they beat Michigan State. So they have a couple wins. Again, Big Ten is crazy. It's a meat grinder. So, but that wraps it up. Talked about everything I want to talk about. If Brad was here, we could elaborate a lot more. So Brad will not be getting his monthly crypto. Coach West will, because he used a child day. So he will get that. Hopefully they come back on the podcast again. I'll be looking forward to try to watch Illinois play Penn State and then finish out with Iowa, because I hate Iowa basketball more than Michigan basketball. So anybody that watched, thank you for watching. Make sure you like the video, hit the subscribe button to the channel. It just really helps out the show. If you're listening to an audio form, rate it, follow it, rate it, be a friend, tell a friend, all that good stuff. How you doing? Keep it moving. All that good stuff. Check out all the affiliates in the description below. Thank you guys so much. Check out weekly episodes. And again, check out everything. Leave a comment. Thank you guys so much for listening or watching. This is Coach Steve, another episode of the Coach Steve Show podcast. We are out of here.